What is up, guys? Today I'm taking a look at the HomeLab HL15 and an AsRock Rack motherboard. I can't remember the name because it's so long, so I've got to look at my notes. The AsRock Rack W680D4U-2L2T/G5. That was a mouthful. All right, guys. Today we're taking a look at the W680D4U-L2. I messed up the name. Whatever. There it is. This thing is absolutely awesome. It's got all the bells and whistles. It's got IPMI. It's got onboard 10 gigabit Ethernet. It's got PCIe Gen 5. It's got a slot for an NVMe. It's got Oculink. It's got everything. This thing is so sweet. And really the only feature I was looking for was ECC. So to get all of this extra stuff on a consumer CPU platform is absolutely awesome. So here you can see the IPMI dedicated port to the left. We've got the NVMe slot. There's the Gen 5. The other two are Gen 4. It's a 8x and a 1x. And then we've also got these Oculinks. So I'm going to play around with these and see if I can jerry-rig this case to fit an IC dock NVMe hot swap bay. It also can be used for a SATA breakout. These hot swap bays support U.2 NVMe's, which would be awesome to set up as a dedicated pool of fast storage for your VMs. And I might do that. That way I don't have storage on my Proxmox cluster itself. All right, so we've got the Noctua fan installed. This thing is actually perfect height, so it should fit in the new chassis perfectly. Let's go ahead and install it in the HL15. So the actual case itself is super easy to build in. I just took the front panel off to put these Noctuas in. It just pops right out, and it even includes this little 3D printed bracket to do a little bit of cable management, and then you just screw the fans in the front. If you're using Noctuas, be careful about the self-tapping screws. I use the short ones. If you're going to put these, I added these little brackets they sell that add space between the fan and the grill to make them quieter. Use the extended ones that it comes with. Otherwise, you'll strip out the fans, which I did in one of the corners. But all right, we've got the motherboard installed. Now we just got to wire up the HBA. I've got a focus. It doesn't know what to focus on. I got a 9305-16, a high in here. But now we've got that IPMI and two 10 gig links in the back and some actual clearance with the new cooler. The old cooler barely stuck out the top and it touched the top of the case. I feel much more comfortable with this. So let's get it wired up and spin this bad boy up. What is up, guys? So we finally have finished the full build, and there's not really too many things to say about the HL15. It is a rock solid case with really good build quality. It's got 15 drive backplane. It fits a standard ATX power supply, and you can get a pretty much full-sized CPU cooler in this thing, which really were the main selling points for me. I know there's other options like the Roswell cases out there, which I have built in before. My parents' server is actually one of those, and they're kind of lackluster. This was really exciting to build in because of the build quality, and I just think it looks badass, to be honest. I like the top loading that this chassis uses, even though a lot of people don't. My dad actually hates that, and it's one of the reasons he wanted the Roswell, although this case wasn't out back then, but he likes the ability to open up the front without having it slide out of the rack. But I don't see any issues there. Now, this case was super easy to build in. The layout is, just perfect. I mean, there's not really anything I can complain about from that perspective. The front panel right here that holds the front fans and this fan bracket in the middle just unscrew and slide right out, which made putting in the Noctua super easy. And, it's just an awesome build. I really wanted to splurge and kind of do a build where I put everything that I wanted and thought was cool into this case. And it's just been awesome. Really, the only complaint that I originally had, which I didn't even run into, is that the PCIe slot covers in the original were actually not replaceable. So when you popped those out, there was no way to screw them back in. On this iteration, they seem to have taken care of that, as well as an issue where some people had a problem getting the PCIe cards brackets in between the motherboard and the case, but it seems like they listened to the consumer and all of that's been fixed, which is awesome. Another thing is these drives are super easy to get in here, and they've got these little retention things, so when you're going to put them in, you don't have to worry about dropping the drive in, and it keeps them secure. So I like that. You know, most solutions have that anyway, so it's really not anything special, but it's pretty cool. Also, it's got these captive screws, which I like for the front panel, although I do think I stripped one of these already. These screws are not as high quality as the rest of the screws in the case, it feels like. So hopefully I don't have any issues down the road with that, but I think it should be fine. I'm not going to be taking this thing open a ton. But anyways, let's do the most exciting part of building a NAS, and that's putting in our hard drive. So these are the Exos X18 18 terabyte hard drives, and the reason I went with these is they're considered enterprise. So Seagate has a program where if you send these back, or you have one fail, they'll actually ship you a new one provided you give them the serial number before you send this back, so you can get your drive pretty quickly. They also have a 5-year warranty, which is awesome, and I really didn't pay that much more than some other drives out there. I think they were $299 for an 18 terabyte hard drive on Amazon. Now, you got to be careful. I did check all of these, and they do have the manufacturer's warranty, so these aren't like, you know, a resell after they expired or something. Yeah, pretty good deal for 18 terabyte hard drives, and with 15 bays, I should have plenty of storage once I fill this thing out. So let's get these drives in. Now, I'm running 6 drives currently, and I'm kind of doing a funky array here. So I'm using TrueNAS scale, which means that my file system is going to be ZFS, and I'm doing something a little bit interesting. A lot of people do mirrors, where that means you've got 2 drives that are together where they replicate, and if one of them fails, you still have a whole nother drive. And the reason they do that is it allows you to expand your pool just with 2 drives at a time, and you get increased performance. So with ZFS, you're really kind of only going to increase performance if you get faster drives with more IOPS, or you increase your amount of VDEV. So like, it doesn't matter how many drives you have. If they're all in one VDEV, your speeds are going to be as fast as the slowest drive in that VDEV. With mirroring, every 2 drives that you add, your performance theoretically should increase. So it allows you to scale, and you have pretty good redundancy there where, you know, if one of those drives in the 2 drive VDEV fails, you can replace it, and it'll be able to rebuild pretty quickly since it's only those 2 drives. I'm going to do something a little bit different, where I'm going to be running VDEVs that are 3 drives wide in RAID Z1. And the reason I want to do this is it's a better compromise when it comes to storage, so you don't lose 50% of your pool to redundancy. It's a little bit less, and you still don't have these super wide VDEVs where you've got to wait for these crazy resilver times. So I know this probably isn't the best option for redundancy, but right now I have this thing, well, I will have this thing backing up to my Synology NAS, which is a 4-bay system, and also replicating to my parents' TrueNAS system, which has like 180 terabytes of storage or something ridiculous. So this will be awesome. And yeah, theoretically, I should have pretty good performance every time I expand with 3 drives. That's the thing to be careful about, is if you're going to be building out a system like this and not filling it all the way with drives from the start, which there's no reason to do because I'm not going to max out the amount of storage. With these 6 drives with 2 3-drive VDEVs, I will have about 65 terabytes of usable storage. That's after all the rest is used up for redundancy, things like that. What was I just saying? So while I believe you can scale out with different size VDEVs, it's not recommended. There's some overhead doing that. And with this I guess topology, or I don't know what you would call it, this layout for my pool, I can just add 3 drives at a time. My storage will increase as well as my performance. So it's a pretty good mid-ground between a mirror and some Z2 array where I'm going to need a lot more drives. And it actually fits perfectly for 15 drives. So I'll have 5 VDEVs, 3 wide each. Some of the other things that I looked at were kind of weird. You know, if I wanted to do 2 Z2 arrays, VDEVs, I would have had to have like 7 and 7, and then I'd have an extra drive. Also, the amount of drives that you have in there really should be a power of 2. Otherwise, you get some weird stuff with how they're all replicated to each other. I'm not an expert on ZFS, so I don't really know all the details about that. That's what I've read online so far. But yeah, I'm super excited for this build. And let's get into installing TrueNAS Scale and setting up my pool. So I'm going to do that all over the IPMI. And that's one of the things that's awesome about this. Actually, anytime I want to switch out the OS for this computer, all I need to do is log into the IPMI, and you can actually upload a CD directly through there and attach it as a virtual disk and then load the OS from there. So yeah, it's going to be sweet. I can't wait. Let's get into the software. All right, guys. So this system actually idles at a pretty good power usage. So it's only 86.8 watts, what we've been averaging so far. So really, really good. Considering we've got 6 drives in here, 128 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm kind of happy with that. You really don't want CPUs that are too powerful because they'll be chewing through your power bill. So I think that's pretty good for what we have today. I know you can do way lower ones if you're going to build like something with an Intel Atom CPU, but we've got a pretty powerful system, so I think this is a good sweet spot. All right, guys, so we are in our IPMI. The way to get there, all you have to do is go to a browser, type in HTTPS and the IP address of it. I was actually able to find that through my networking equipment. I logged into the Unify portal and could see it there. It was named like Remote Technologies or something like that, but basically it was a device that had only been online for a couple minutes once I plugged this in, so I was able to tell that way. First things first, we get some information here. There's a ton of stuff in this, but I'm not going to use most of it. There's tons of information on your system, which is pretty cool here. You can see your motherboard model, your processor, your memory. I was actually able to find one of my sticks was broken. It was beeping like crazy, and the system actually wouldn't post. So I've got to get that RMA'd and get a new stick. I'm going to also run some memory testing later on. Just to make sure everything's good, because that makes me kind of nervous that one of those was broken. So the operating speed of this is 4800 megahertz, but I actually had to tune it down to 3600 because that's what's officially supported by the motherboard, and we're going for stability here, not necessarily the highest speeds. So the big thing that we're going to use today is the remote control, and this is my favorite part so far. Here you get a virtual KVM where you can actually see what's going on as if you had a monitor plugged in. And you can do things like mount a CD virtually, which is so cool. And that's actually how we're going to install TrueNAS Scale. So let's go ahead and download that. Let's go to truenas.com, Scale. Then we're going to go to no thanks, I've already signed up, which I have. Go ahead and enter your email if you haven't. And then we're going to download stable. This is 24.04. It's called like Dragon Scale or Dragonfish or something like that, is the latest version. So go ahead and click directory you want to save it in. I've actually already downloaded this, so I'm not going to do it again, but yeah. Let's go ahead and spin up our KVM. Make that full screen. I'm going to do Browse File. From here, I can select my TrueNAS Scale ISO. Click Start Media to load that ISO. And then I'm going to power the server on. All right, we can see the system booting up. This is actually what would be appearing on a monitor if you had one, but you don't need one now. And this is like the best feature ever. You don't have to have this by your desk. I don't have to, mess up any of the cable routing that I've done for my desktop. I don't have to worry about the resolution of my monitor, if it's going to work with this or not. You just plug it into the network, into the wall, turn it on, and you can have it in any room in your house. I love this for remote management. It's really great. So let's go ahead and enter the boot menu, and we're going to select the virtual CD. And if you end up getting one of these AsRock Rack motherboards, you're never going to want to turn it off because for some reason the splash screen takes like 5 minutes on this damn thing. I've been hitting F11 for like 5 minutes. All right, finally we're entering the boot menu. That took forever. So we see our NVMe. We've got a bunch of other random stuff. I guess this is a shortcut to get the UEFI that you can enter setup. Here we've got our AMI virtual CD-ROM. That's actually what we're looking for. So when we enter this, we should see that this is the TrueNAS Scale ISO. So let's give it a second. So we can see that that actually worked. So let's start TrueNAS Scale installation. The installation for this is super easy. It's really nothing other than setting up your admin password, and then the rest will actually be done on the web GUI of your system. So yeah, installation's super easy. We'll get that done, and then I'll show you what's up with the web GUI. So just one thing, if you guys are doing an installation on TrueNAS Scale, and you don't have something like IPMI where you can load the ISO, you don't have a CD-ROM, and you're going to use something like a USB stick to boot from, I'd recommend using Balena Etcher for this version. I used to use Rufus, but when creating the ISO image on a USB, it actually did not work with Rufus for some reason. I had a boot issue. Using Balena Etcher was able to solve that, so go ahead and use that until they fix whatever the issue is with it. I'm not sure if it had something to do with the Grub version that's shipped with it, but I just could not get it to work no matter what I tried, so yeah. All right, we're at the install screen, so what we're going to do is install upgrade. We can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 18 terabyte hard drives. Here you can see that there's actually already a pool on these. I did this video once, and for some reason OBS crashed and I lost the footage. So we're going to do it again, delete this pool, and show you how to create a new one. But anyways, to select your drive, you hover over it and hit space. Okay. This will erase all partitions. All right, sounds good. And we're going to do administrative user. So you can do configure using web UI, but when you do that the first time you have to set up the admin. I just prefer to do it here and set my password. So I'm going to get that set and I'll be right back. All right, click OK, and the installation should continue. So we're going to do no swap. We've got 128 gigabytes of RAM in this, so we really shouldn't need a swap. All right. This should install TrueNAS Scale. All that's left is really to do a reboot, and then we'll figure out what the IP is of our NIC, and then log into the web GUI and do the rest from there. So yeah, installation for TrueNAS is super easy. There's really nothing that you do from here. It's all done in the web GUI. All right, guys, so we're into the console setup. This is what's going to show up the first time you boot into your system that has TrueNAS Scale installed. And really the only thing we need from here is our web GUI IP address. So here we can see the system's configured to use 192.168.1.25. Let's go ahead and hop over to our browser and try to log in. All right, guys, so here we can see we've got our memory. We got the little ECC, which is awesome. I've never seen that before and excited to have that. I don't know if I said it earlier, but one of our sticks was dead, so we're waiting for that to be RMA'd, and then we should have 128 gigabytes from there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and create our storage pool. So first things first, we're going to create a pool. I already have an old pool on these disks, so let's go ahead and select those disks that we want to use. Usually you don't have to do this, but we're going to name it the same thing. And this should wipe the entire thing. We are going to select RAID Z1, select our drives, treat as minimum disk, and our width is going to be 3 with 2 VDEVs. So over here we can see we've got our 2 RAID Z1s with 3 18 terabyte hard drives. Next, we are not going to set up anything for log. So this is basically kind of like a write cache. It's not actually a write cache, but the log VDEV, a cache VDEV, and a metadata VDEV are some things you can do to improve performance for very specific scenarios. So if you've got, a pool that's not performing as you need it to, there are some optimizations you can do with making these additional VDEVs. But for mass storage, things like Plex and most home users will never really need it. If you do need it, you're probably better off doing a lot of research and or consulting a professional for using these other ones. I may use a ZFS log in the future, but for now we don't need it. We don't even have the drives for it. So, all right, yep, let's go ahead and create the pool. Here we can see we have 65.48 terabytes of usable storage, which is really a ton, and I'm kind of excited. So my Plex media library is currently about 12 or 15 terabytes, so that gives us a ton of room to expand. And I've already got a ton of 4K remuxes on there. I buy all my favorite movies in 4K UHD discs, then rip them and send them over here without compressing them all with Handbrake. We just got Dune 2 and watched that, and I do have to say the quality was mind-blowing for Dune. Really, really good-looking movie. So we've got our data set here, or we've got our pool here, and the first things first, we need to add a data set. So what I'm going to do is just add a Plex data set, go ahead and click Save, and from here we can actually set up our file system. So I'll SSH into this server, create folders for each one of them, and then just rsync all of my data from the other server over here, and we should be good to go. I'm going to set up most of this other stuff in another video, but that's just the basics for it. First things first, though, I am going to show you how to set it up as an SMB share because it is a little confusing at first. When I ran into it, I couldn't figure it out because I am stupid, and I would select my data set and then try to create it. I'm like, oh, what's going on? I have to join Active Directory, and I always make the mistake of not reading everything fully, which, you know, as you get older, you learn, especially as a software engineer, read documentation and read it fully, because right after that it says, or have at least one local SMB user. So that was the problem before. So we're going to hop down to credentials, and I'm going to create a user here. So let's go down, and my username, that'll work for now. I'm not going to add an email or anything. This is just a temp one. So just to show you how to do it, I'll make a full user in the future. I actually like to create a home directory for this user, but I'm not going to do that yet. When I set up my SMB shares, I usually have a share for every individual user and then create their home directory there. So we're not going to worry about that for now. We're going to allow Samba, that's SMB, and then click Save. So we've got an extra user here, and now we should be able to set up this share for SMB. So let's go ahead and select it, click Save, configure ACLs. So let's go ahead and use a preset. I'm just going to set this to POSIX open and save the access control list. And from here, we should be able to SSH or connect to this as a network drive. So here for PC, I'm going to click Add Network Location. All right, so we've got our IP address, the name of our share. Let's click Next, and it's going to ask us for our credentials. Let's go ahead and click Next. And now we've got an empty SMB share. So here we can create our folder structure for Plex, something like content, etc. And we can either move everything over here using SMB, rsync, or something like that. So yeah. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. I know at the end it was just like me configuring stuff, but I had some people ask me how to set it up initially because it is a little confusing when you first get into it. You don't know where any of the menus are or anything. The next video we're going to do is going to be on installing Plex and getting everything spun up, as well as some of the automation I use, which is pretty cool. And then we're going to do some really fun stuff, like look at how fast we can write to this via SMB, some optimizations, how the cache is used in memory, and why ZFS uses so much RAM. If you guys have any suggestions for future videos or anything you want to see, drop them in the comments, and I'll be happy to check it out. I got to get some 10 gig networking first so we can see how fast we can write to this. And yeah, it'll be cool. Thanks for watching, guys, and take it easy.